Hey guys, if you would like to support my channel, please consider becoming a part of my Patreon family. The link will be in the description, and I hope you enjoy the video. Thank you so much. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Spectre 6 here. Today I have a rather interesting video that I'm going to be doing for you guys. It kind of came to me the previous night. I don't even remember how, but I thought it would be some good content for my channel. Fair trigger warning. What I'm about to say might infuriate some of you. It might not. Regardless if it does, this is about me sharing my personal thoughts and opinions, and also explaining as to why I ultimately decided not to join the military. So if you have any hateful or harsh or violent comments, keep them to yourself. I have no time for that bullshit. If you want to comment on this video, be sure to keep it civil, because I do not have time for whiny crybabies. This is a simple discussion of why I ultimately did not join. With all that being said, I will go ahead and start off by just explaining that ever since I was a kid, I had the dream of joining the military and serving my country. I always had a fascination with it ever since, oh gosh, at least 7 years old, at the very least. And that's what my goal was when I got older, to join the military, to serve my country. And I went through a small period of time where I was trying to decide what I ultimately wanted to be, and I eventually decided on the Navy. I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. And I would spend years of my childhood studying weapons, tactics, training, what kind of training they go through, what they actually train to get prepared for. And just, military lingo, just, the nomenclature, all of the abbreviations and anacronyms. Anacronyms? Or is it acronyms? Holy crap. I cannot fucking remember. Anyway, I'm sure you guys will get what I'm saying. And truth be told, as a kid, growing up, movies and video games had a lot to do with the dream of wanting to join the military. Now, I understand that the way movies and video games portray war and military culture and all that stuff is nowhere close to realistic. I understand that. At least I do now. As a kid, I mean, you're a kid. You don't know what the hell you're talking about when you're a kid. As a child, I had a strong sense of duty towards my country, especially once I was old enough to understand the September 11 attacks. I was only 6 or 7 when that happened, and at that young age, you really don't know what's going on. I don't even really remember the attacks happening. I remember seeing it on the news, but I was, only 7 years old. I didn't realize what was happening. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand the significance of it, the damage that had been done. I didn't understand it at all. Over time, I kind of started to get a sense of what had happened and started to understand what happened, where it happened, when it happened, the damage that it did. And I started to have that urge that was I don't want this to happen again. I want to be able to protect my loved ones, my family. I want to be able to serve my country, protect it from stuff like that happening ever again. And, as the years went by, I began studying our country's history in depth, as well as the Constitution. What I tried my best to understand what our forefathers thought when they were penning it, the Bill of Rights, everything, and I became a staunch believer in the Second Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and I will always stand by that till the day I die. Which, looking back, kind of comes back as a little bit of a no-brainer, not much of a surprise that I became a staunch believer in it, because I was fascinated by guns ever since I was a little kid. I mean, hell, most of my middle school and high school years, I grew up playing airsoft. And boy, did I love airsoft. But I stopped playing once I was old enough to buy real guns. Around the time I was in high school, I began to look more in depth as to how our military and veterans were being treated both during and after their service. Probably the first one that I noticed, that I can remember at least, is I always thought that, the men and women serving in our military would have the best medical care available to the world. But from everything that I have been told up to this point in my life, it seemed that that was not the case. They were constantly, having to go through hoops. It was just like a constant cycle. A lot of people were having trouble even like getting the help that they needed. And it just seemed to just keep going on and on. And I know that some people did get the help that they needed, but it just seemed like the vast majority of them didn't. And that really irked me the wrong way, especially because by that time I was starting to understand the effects that war could have on a person. Now, I've never served, so I will never truly understand the whole scope of it, but I could just see what it could do. Whatever they had witnessed, whatever they had experienced, it could have both a negative and positive effects. But a lot of the times I saw negative effects. And now obviously since I haven't served, I don't really know much. I just am going based off of what I've been told, because I have friends that have served, and they would always tell me that they would sometimes it would just be a hassle, and sometimes it was like a constant fight just to get medical care. I mean, nothing is more important than your mental health when you're a soldier going to war. What you deal with mentally, just with anything really, if you're not mentally stable, you're not going to be able to be yourself. You're not going to be able to concentrate. You can't focus. And it seems like a lot of veterans, particularly ones that were suffering from like PTSD, survivor's guilt, whatever, it seemed like it was very difficult to get the kind of help that they needed. And that was quite disheartening because, I mean, I've dealt with stuff that someone at the time my age shouldn't have had to deal with. And I'm not comparing the two by any means. It's just I've dealt with some pretty messed up stuff in my childhood that, I know what that kind of mental anguish can do to you if you don't get help. On top of it being difficult for, veterans to get a lot of the help that they needed, I also noticed that a sizable portion of homeless were veterans. Like, these guys served our country, they should be entitled to, this and that, in my personal opinion. Why are they out on the streets? And, anything could have happened. Maybe, they got divorced, they lost everything. Like, I understand that some things happen, but it's just like, it kind of just came off as they were just being kind of left in the dust. And a good friend of mine who I work with, a previous job of his, he actually would tend to veterans. And he had some horror stories. And it made me just, granted, this is after my decision to not join, and I just felt so bad. It all just makes me, it just made me wonder everything. Even before that, why were so many homeless veterans? Really? Fucking camera? There. So yeah, public perception. My own in-depth study of the Vietnam War and the veterans coming back from that war and the verbal abuse that they got and harassment and all of that stuff just makes me sick to my stomach. And it may not be as bad as it is today as it was back then, but it still happens. Our men and women will get dumped on for simply doing their jobs, to follow orders. The orders are not always good. Some of them are pretty fucked up. I get that, but it's just like, they're just doing their job. That's all they're doing. It's not up to them. Once they're given orders, they have to follow them. There's consequences if they don't, and some of them are more than happy to accept the consequences if they feel it's better than going through with it, whatever orders they're given. But it's just like, that doesn't stop people from just destroying them verbally, calling them hateful and just spiteful, disgusting names when they don't understand a thing about what they could have possibly gone through. And it's just totally unjustifiable. It's not like they don't deserve such harsh words from the people that they took an oath to defend. And the same goes for law enforcement. It's kind of the same thing. I understand that there's bad eggs out there, but they're not all bad eggs. The way that people will just spit on those that take an oath to serve and protect us, it's just fucking... It pisses me off to no end. I can't even find the right words for it. It's just disgusting. And see, I will always support our grunts on the ground doing the heavy lifting, so to speak. But as I grew up, I began to notice, on top of like the civilian side of things, I began to notice surprising amounts of ignorance, arrogance, and incompetence within the chain of command. Like any old typical job, really. And it reaches all the way up to the upper echelons of Congress and our government, which made it abundantly clear that most, maybe not all, but most everything that we would begin to do would be for nothing else but political gain and personal self-interest for those in charge. It has almost nothing to do with our guys fighting the battles, who are stationed over there, away from their families, dealing with everything that they deal with over there. Boredom. They stress about home. They wonder if their family's okay. Now, don't grill me in the comments on this one, guys. This is just my perception, based on stories, events, and everything else that I've read, been told, and seen from even some of my closest friends. So, please don't grill me about that one. That's just my perception. Another thing, it wasn't as prevalent at the time that I was growing up, but the rise of wokeness within our government and the military. Which is no surprise at this point, because it makes total sense why our military is struggling to recruit, because no one wants to be a part of that. I know I sure as hell don't. The whole woke agenda has got to be the biggest joke of the modern age. The whole woke thing is just a clear sign of, in my eyes at least, human degeneration and emotional immaturity, especially when it comes to hot topics such as police shootings. Most of the time nowadays, people start peaceful protests. I say that in quotes because a lot of them are not actually peaceful anymore, before they ever know any of the details, which is a prime example of emotional immaturity. They just take it at face value without ever waiting for any of the details to come out. And now that's not me saying that everything that they say is fact, because, I'm not really a believer in that myself, but it's not fair to it's not fair to pass judgment when you don't know a damn thing about what went on. And even by the time they release the facts on something such as police shootings, those people are already so far up their asses with their own bullshit that they deny what is clear to the naked eye, such as body cam footage that clearly shows that, in the case of police officers, that they acted in due course because they were afraid for their own safety and the safety of others, that they responded with lethal force. That is what their job is, to protect and serve the community. And more often than not, law enforcement does not use deadly force unless it is absolutely necessary. But a lot of people these days don't fucking care about that. There's like, oh, this cop killed this guy, I hate him. It's no different in the military. A soldier's overseas, for example, and they're forced to defend a fellow squad of soldiers from a woman, or, God forbid, a child running at them with a bomb. Do you have any idea what kind of mental damage that does to them? But they do it because they present an imminent threat to either their fellow servicemen, innocent bystanders. It doesn't fucking matter. They do what they need to do to protect others, even if it costs the life of someone that they know is going to haunt them for the rest of their lives. And I can't even begin to imagine the turmoil, the emotional turmoil that would put inside of someone. For example, have you ever seen, I'm sure plenty of you guys have seen American Sniper, the movie about Chris Kyle. Great movie. Sad. I can't watch it. It makes me cry. There's a scene where he is forced to kill a mother and a child carrying a bomb to a group of soldiers. And that bothered him so deeply that it affected his relationships at home. He was so disturbed by it. And it took a lot for him to even come out of that. And then he died. Anyway, enough about that. When the public hears about that, whether it's military or law enforcement, it doesn't matter. If they're forced to kill someone, regardless of who it is, to save somebody else, they just immediately start spitting on them. And calling them all kinds of hateful bile. Verbal abuse. When most of the time they're already emotionally conflicted. How is that fucking helping? You're just making it worse. You're contributing to the suicide rate of veterans by calling them all that hateful bile. You're no better than the evil that they try to fight. Who are they to say anything unless they had been there, done what they did, seen what they seen? What right do you have to bash on anyone in the military or law enforcement community if you don't know what they went through? You have no right to even open your mouth. Everyone may have the right to their own opinions, but that doesn't mean that they should voice them. A lot of people's opinions need to be kept to their fucking selves. A lot of that will lead to, in my case to some extent, for example, it will lead to a lot of people that were looking to join to ultimately choose not to. And even the people that are currently active duty will begin to just not care. They'll begin to not see the worth, the point in any of it if they're constantly getting just abused. Verbally, emotionally, physically, it doesn't fucking matter. And after the overturn of Roe v. Wade, it just got worse. I personally was appalled when that fucking decision came down because it's bullshit. Women have the right to do whatever they want when it concerns their lives and their bodies. They have the right to choose. Nobody has the right to choose for them. It should not ever be up to anyone other than those women themselves to make that kind of choice. Ever. Service men and women, especially women, who are basically now refusing to stand by their oaths. And personally, I don't fucking blame them. You know, it makes me upset when... Well, I mean, personally, I hate social media, and I think people need to stay away from it, but... especially when it comes to political matters. But, like, a lot of the stuff that I would see would be on things like TikTok and Twitter. And, you know, I don't like that they're saying these things, but I can't bring myself to blame them. When the government turns their back on the people like that, especially when it concerns something that should be a basic human right, I don't blame them at all. Not even a little bit. Which brings me to my final point. This is where I would probably say the biggest trigger warning for anyone watching. There was a time when it was an honor to serve your country. An honor to stand by fellow brothers in arms, go to war, and fight for freedom. What honor is there to be had anymore? What freedom? A lot of us are losing our fucking freedoms. Women just basically are losing one now with the Roe v. Wade overturn. A lot of women that live in certain states can't get abortions now. I remember hearing about one, I don't remember all the details, But a woman was forced to live with a dead fetus inside of her for 2 weeks. I think it was 2 weeks. Because she couldn't go to an abortion clinic. That could have killed her. So yeah, what freedom are we fighting for anymore? Where is the honor? Seriously, just where is the honor? I am willing to bet that no one will be able to answer that question for me convincingly. With everything that I've talked about so far, what is so honorable about any of it? None of it in my eyes. That something bigger that I've heard so many veterans talk about is long gone. It disappeared from me during my formative years. I saw it as a kid, but as I grew up, I began to see through the cracks in the armor of our government and our military. I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm just saying none of it seems worth it anymore. Veterans don't usually get the health care that they deserve, especially mental health care. That's hard enough for civilians alone. Most insurance companies don't even cover stuff like therapy, psychiatric care. A lot of them end up homeless. And people actively serving, a lot of them will go through tremendous personal turmoil, especially when it comes to relationships. I've often heard many times over that being a military wife or a military husband is like the hardest job in the world. And I see that. I totally see it. You're constantly away from your family. Hardly ever see them. And even when you do, you only get to see them for a very short amount of time before you have to go back. And on top of that, many veterans struggle to reintegrate back into society because when they're leaving the military, some of it does deal with, the emotional side of things, like I've said before, but another large chunk of it comes from losing that sense of purpose and fulfillment and discipline that they would have in the military community. They would have like that structure that it's very difficult to find anywhere else. Once you've adjusted to something like that, I could totally see how hard it would be to, try to find that same kind of like just structure outside of the military. Most, workplaces don't even go anywhere near the kind of structure that the military community would have. And, they just don't have that sense of structure, that sense of discipline, which then has the potential to lead to, mental instability if they're not already struggling with it when, they're trying to, it's like, I've been told that it's kind of like a fix for some. They had that structure, and now that they don't have it anymore, they're basically going through withdrawal. And a lot of people can't handle it, which makes sense to me, especially because, you're in the military, you're fed, you're cared for, they take care of basically anything for you. But once you're out, you have to make a new plan. You have to do everything on yourself. And when you're so used to that kind of structure where everything's basically being taken care of for you and you're being taken care of, it's going to be very stressful. And me personally, I don't deal with stress very well, so that definitely wouldn't be good for me. All of that, combined with the woke bullshit, the handling, mistreatment of so many people, both in the military and law enforcement community, is why, when I came of age, that I ultimately decided it was not worth enlisting. The cons far outweighed the pros. And now, like I said before, I know it's not always bad. I know that there are vets that manage to reintegrate into society just fine. They still have families. They have happy lives. I understand that, but not all of them. And I'm thinking about the ones that didn't, the ones that couldn't, the ones that just it was all too much for them, and they would lose everything, sometimes even their own lives. And personally, this is more of an opinion. It's probably an unrealistic opinion, but I feel that if you serve your country or even your community as an officer of the law, you should be entitled to and guaranteed the best medical care, physical and mental, available. Guaranteed it. You shouldn't have to go through bullshit loops. You shouldn't have to deal with go-betweens. You shouldn't have to deal with any of that. You should just be able to go down to, your doctor's office, VA, the hospital, whatever. Go in there, hey, I'm having trouble with this. We'll get you taken care of. It might be like that for some. But as far as I can see, for most, it's not. And mental health has got to be the most important thing for military and law enforcement veterans. They have seen shit that most of us will never ever see in our lives. They've gone through stuff that most of us will never ever go through in our lives. And some of that is going to just weigh on them mentally, emotionally. It's going to affect everyone and everything around them. I've seen it happen many times. And even when you're just like, the friend just watching them suffer through this stuff, it's really hard to help them get out of that funk. Because a lot of times they're so far gone because they were never able to get the help they needed when they actually needed it to begin with. And mental health is just everything in life. If you're not mentally stable, you can't live your life the way you want it to. Everything. Even for civilians just working, your average 9-to-5 jobs. Mental health drives everything. Our men and women in the law enforcement and military communities go through so much stuff, so much shit. Some of it might be good. A lot of it is bad. We will never, us as civilians, we're never going to understand what they went through. We're never going to understand the choices they had to make. Whether they were good choices, bad choices, it doesn't matter. We weren't there. We don't know what it's like. We don't know what they're going through, what they had to do at all. So, and yet people constantly harass those men and women. And they do it because apparently ignorance is bliss. Seems to be the statement of the fucking past 10 years. Most people live their lives blindly. And nowadays, especially younger generations, they come into this absurd sense of self-importance coupled with senses of entitlement, vain superiority complexes, and they just think they're owed everything in the fucking world. People have become so selfish and so ignorant and arrogant and blind. America is not what it was meant to be, guys. We have fallen so far from the vision of our founding fathers. Take that one however you will. Our forefathers founded this nation under the principle of freedom and personal choice to be free of persecution, live our lives the way we wanted to. And yet it has always been a constant battle. Except these days, it just seems like people just don't fucking care anymore. They act like they care and they say they care, but they really don't. Not unless it suits their own self-interest. Only if it affects them, they don't care. The people that truly care about the things that they believe in and actually fight, they're always constantly fighting, being met with resistance on all fronts, on all sides, constantly surrounded, constantly being oppressed. There are no lions left in this country. All that we have in power is weak, pathetic sheep. And that's not something I want to fight for. I can't justify serving under a regime that has completely forgotten the core of this country and what it was supposed to be. Most politicians, they only serve themselves. They don't give a shit about us. They spit on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights daily. And the ones that truly care, the ones that still believe in what this country was supposed to be, what it should be, a lot of them are alone. They fight and they fight and they fight, but it's always a history of stalemates or losses. Not very many wins. Some would say that the US of A is the people and comes from the people. But how can that be true when so many of those people turn their backs on the Constitution? And that's probably like the moral or the gist of this whole story of mine is everything has become so political. I'm not affiliated with either party because I agree and disagree with both. However, the left is becoming increasingly tyrannical. But that's besides the point. So many political decisions are not made in the best interest of the people. They're made off of personal self-interest. for those making those decisions. Because what do they care about? Re-election. They do not give a damn who they hurt, who they offend, who they ostracize. They only care about keeping their jobs. And that goes for both. That goes both ways. It's both parties. I'm not even going to get into the whole subject of separation of church and state. All I will say is this. Believe what you want to believe. That is your right. But keep it out of the affairs of everyone else. Religion has no place in governing of any kind. And we all know the overturn of Roe v. Wade was a religious decision, not a political one. It was purely stemming from religious bullshit. And you can agree or disagree with me all you like, but we all know it's fucking true. Not a moral one. It wasn't a decision in the best interest of the people. It was a purely one-sided religious decision. What America is supposed to be, what it should be, is not what it became. It's that simple. There was a period of time when people actually cared for what they believed in, fought for it, tried to make things better and fair for every citizen of this country, and some would make considerable progress. Now, people are just out for themselves, and that extends to really anything. Political, government, military, law enforcement, the ones that are in charge, a lot of them are out for themselves. I'm not saying they all are, but a lot of them are. That extends to even political movements. The ones that truly care and fight and show that they care and are still trying on the behalves of others and not just themselves. Please, keep fighting for what you believe in, no matter how hard it gets. You are the real strength. Maybe one day people will wake up and actually learn from our mistakes, and maybe one day it would be an honor to serve. But as of right now, for me, I see no honor in it. Those of you that are currently serving, I admire you. Because I'm willing to bet that most, if not all of you, do it because you feel that you must. For your fellow soldiers, your fellow countrymen. And I applaud you for doing what you thought you needed to do. Doing what you believed in. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this and listening to my story of why I ultimately decided not to join the military. I know I got a little deep there for a little bit, but I just wanted to say everything that I felt. And it was not meant as an attack on anybody by any means. I just wanted to be completely honest with you and tell you guys why everything that went into me not joining the military. Just take what you will from this video. So yeah, guys, keep things down in the comments section very civilized and chill. You know, I don't want to see fights. I don't want to see name calling or anything like that. Just keep it civil. Just have friendly discussions and let me know what you guys think about this. If you agree, disagree, that's fine. I am just giving you guys my personal and honest thoughts and beliefs. Thank you so much, guys, for all the support that I've gotten so far. You guys have been amazing. You may have noticed in the background, I have built me a gun wall. I got all my fancy little toys up there. If you would like to see a overview of my collection, this isn't all of it. But if you would like to see an overview of my collection, you can find that video on my Patreon, which I will be releasing very soon. It will be on my Patreon only. So if you would like to see that, be sure to check out my Patreon. It's only $3 a month, and you can just have some fun. Enjoy my videos, especially the stuff that I bring there exclusively, like my honorary videos. Yeah, I'm quite proud of that. I haven't really built a damn thing in my life in terms of, like, home improvements. I'm actually kind of I'm quite proud of that. Still gonna build some more for it. I still have more stuff to hang. So yeah, guys, if you'd like to see that video, be sure to check out my Patreon. It should be releasing sometime this weekend. I think it should be up there by the end of Sunday. So definitely check that out. Patreon will be linked down in the description below. Thank you so much, guys. Make sure to share, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.